You're listening to WNZK, Dearborn Heights, Detroit, your ethnic superstation, 690 days, 680 nights.
أهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arab, WNZK 690 AM, and wdmv 700 AM. Good morning, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to another show on Radio Baladi. Today we are discussing the third episode, the part 3 of Countering Islamophobia, Remarkable Voices and Successful Efforts. My guests this morning are Ms. Lorraine Lee, the chair of the Committee on Hate Violence in Montgomery County, Maryland. She was appointed as chair to the Committee on Hate and Violence in 2012 and has been a committee member since 2010. She is responsible for leading the 15-member Committee on Hate Violence, whose mission is to advise the county executive, county council, county agencies, and the public about hate violence in the county and to recommend policies that help to combat violence and hate speech, and recommend policies, programs, legislation, or regulations necessary to reduce the incidence of hate and violence. She lives in Montgomery County, Maryland, along with her husband and 2 children. And my second guest this morning is Mrs. Negm, a member of the Committee on Hate and Violence in Montgomery County, Maryland, who has more than 40 years work experience in the field of aging, working with the local, state, and national levels, developing culturally sensitive policy, research, and practice to meet the needs of culturally diverse special populations. She was the founder and director of the Muslim Community Center's Seniors Program, a multi-ethnic, multicultural, intergenerational program offering social, educational, and recreational activities, as well as new Healthy Aging Initiative from 2010 till present. Additionally, she served as a commissioner on the Montgomery County Commission on Aging between 2010 and 2013. She was also a consultant on women's development with the World Bank from 2000 to 2005, working with North African countries, educational institutions, and governmental agencies to develop curriculum modules to empower North African women by helping them compete in the workforce. Between 1986 to 2000, Mrs. Negm was an instructor in the areas of human development, psychology, and aging in Prince George's Community College, and she has a degree in aging from the University of Maryland, College Park. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Ms. Lorraine, there has been an event recently at the Muslim Community Center, the MCC, as a follow-up to a previous event that took place on December 10th. And this has been a very important opportunity to listen to the Muslim community and to the concerns they have. Can you please elaborate on why this is important and why this initiative has started in the first place?
Certainly. I'm happy to. The Committee on Hate Violence as you spoke to our mission, we are looking to counter acts of hate, violence, and certainly to speak out against them. What we've seen in the past few months, which has been very troubling to us, is that our brothers and sisters that are members of the Muslim community have really been, in our view, maligned, mistreated, just subjected to just unspeakable acts of hate towards children in schools, towards Muslim families, just sometimes just based on image, knowing nothing more, or visibly what individuals see on the outside, and we found those acts and those acts to be very troubling. And our committee set out to come into the Muslim community to really hear the voices of the community, to hear directly from those who had been impacted, the children, the families, the women, the men, because we know that our brothers and sisters in the Muslim community have always supported the work of COHV. And again, we wanted to come in to aid the community. We wanted to come in and talk about resources that are available in the county. And we wanted to bring those stakeholders and those voices and those who provide those resources to the table to speak openly about what the community should expect and what should be afforded to the community, not just because they're Muslim Americans, but because they are peaceful, loving people who make up such a great part of our county and are so deserving of all the support that we can garner. So we really look to come in and talk about so many of the issues that we learned about on December the 10th when we first met with the community.
Right, and if you can also give us an idea, Ms. Lorraine, broadly speaking, about the whole idea behind the Committee on Hate and Violence. When did it actually start? How was the whole idea born? And what are the most important missions, functions, and objectives of this committee?
Oh, sure. The committee came about in the early 80s, and actually it was at the behest of the county executive at that time. We serve as a county board of Montgomery County. We report directly to our county executive, Isaiah Leggett. And the need was, at that time, as it continues to be today, that there were so many instances where hate and violence was so pervasive in our county. And people at that time, the thought was, where would people go? How do they report these acts? But most importantly, how do they get support when they are victims of hate violence? And how can we, as a committee, educate the citizens of Montgomery County to, we all know that education is power. So knowing and having the resources frees everyone up to be better citizens. And we knew that we had to reach the county in a way to offer programs, policies, legislation, regulations to reduce these incidents of hate violence. And that's what we've been working on throughout the years. We have partnered not just with the Muslim community, but with the Sikh community. We've partnered with the LGBTQ community. Wherever we have heard of these vile acts, we have spoken out against them. And what is really interesting, it's not just been those that occur in the county, these acts, but those that occur anywhere in our nation. As we know, our nation has been rife with, and I would say even before, unfortunately before September 11th, but certainly after, our nation has been humbled, if you will, with so many groups being targets of unfortunate, horrific, unspeakable acts. So, and that's everywhere in the country. So even if we heard of an attack against Muslims in a geographical area outside of Montgomery County, we would still connect with our friends here, because we knew that there is such an impact when anything happens in our country. It impacts not just the minority, but the majority of individuals who subscribe to that ethnic or that ethnicity or religion or gender or racial group.
Absolutely.
So we have
Thank
a lot
you
of
so
work
much.
ahead of us.
A lot of work is ahead of us, of course. My second guest, Mrs. Muna Negm, you are also a liaison for the Muslim community with the Committee on Hate and Violence. And we had these two very important events at the Muslim Community Center in Silver Spring, Maryland recently, one on December 10th and one recently on February 17th. Can you please also shed light on the importance of these initiatives in light of, this discussion, and why having a liaison between the Committee on Hate and Violence and the Muslim community is particularly important?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I want to first start by saying I want to thank you, Dr. Sahar Khamis, for giving us the opportunity to speak on this very important topic, but also as a fabulous ambassador of Islam and of the Muslim community, not only nationally but internationally. So we're extremely proud of you, and if we have a good example of how you can fight against Islamophobia, you are a fabulous example. So we thank you very much for it. Let me just backtrack a little bit and say that, and to repeat what Lorraine has said, is that the Muslim community has been devastated by the Islamophobia that's been going on through either the politicians and the media, the continuous bombardment and negative stereotyping. And we had gotten to the point where we were hungry for someone to come and say, hey, listen, we care and we want to listen to you. And it was thanks to the great sensitivity of the Committee on Hate and Violence with the Office of Human Rights, its leadership with Lorraine and James Stowe, who have insisted on, taking the committee instead of bringing some representation from our Muslim community to them or to the committee, but to actually take the whole entire committee and go to the community and say we care and we want to listen to you. So it was, the first meeting was in December, and it was for the purpose of identifying the priority issues of concern to the community, and not only to just listen and let them vent, but to validate their issues and to take it to county officials and make sure that there are some powerful responses to them. So that's what happened. So the first meeting was, as I said, on December 10th, and it was, we were really energized by the amount of enthusiasm that and the response that we got from the community. Young and older participated. Children talked about, expressed, and there was complete trust. And that was really important. So they expressed their concern about issues of bullying. First of all, there was an underlying and agreement by everybody that we were very fortunate to live in Montgomery County, that of all the places throughout the United States, despite the fact that the situation was really bad, but we were very fortunate to have the kind of leadership in Montgomery County that was culturally sensitive and responsive to the community needs, and and our leadership is extremely supportive. Our county leadership extremely supportive of the Muslim community as well as other minority communities. I mean, we are a majority minority, So. In any case, so the first, the key issues that were identified during the discussion were, of course, little kids being bullied in school. So it was really, really important for them to express their concern. And then, of course, the issue of the need for education and cultural sensitivity. And there is a very famous person who kept on, repeating the three specific recommendation. And you probably remember it, Dr. Khamis. And that's educate, right? Coordinate, and what was the third one? Amplify, right? Educate, coordinate, and amplify.
Yes, we will stop here at this point, Mrs. Negm, and we will come back again to this discussion, starting with these 3 points after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Okay.
Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects to provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
Jumana K-Ruse. You've seen her images on giant billboards across the metro. Jumana K-Ruse. You've seen her images on buses across the city. Now get to know Jumana K-Ruse.
It's sad, but it seems like we live in an age where most lawyers are focused on the bottom line, the money. And a lot of people have stopped wanting to truly advocate. I'll never forget this case. This woman chose me as a lawyer of last resort. She was hit by a semi-truck. I was able to recover about $480,000. Not every lawyer is an advocate, but every lawyer should be an advocate.
Let Jumana K-Ruse protect your rights. Call the law offices of Jumana K-Ruse at 1-866-YOUR-RIGHTS, extension 100, or visit yourrights.com.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and wdmv 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we are discussing today part 3 of the series on fighting Islamophobia, remarkable voices and successful efforts. And with me this morning discussing this important topic are Ms. Lorraine Lee, the chair of the Committee on Hate and Violence in Montgomery County, and Mrs. Mona Negm, a member of the Committee on Hate Violence in Montgomery County, Maryland. Before going to the commercial break, we identified 3 important points to actually, guide us in this discussion to educate and coordinate and amplify. And I would like to start with the part about education. Obviously, we need education in the classroom, but education that also goes beyond the classroom, the wider sense, the wider meaning of education, by also having community engagement. Ms. Lorraine, if you would to expand on this particular point, what are some of the efforts and initiatives that the Committee on Hate Violence has taken in terms of trying to raise awareness, not just among the Muslim community, but also in general about what are hate crimes, what constitutes hate crimes, what can people do when they are actually affected by a hate crime, and what action should be taken? What are some of these educational efforts with the communities?
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the key things that we see as being critically important is a teaching with respect to cultural sensitivity. There has to be, the public must be educated and must have the sensibility to understand other cultures and also part of that, and part of that understanding is to go into those cultures. Mona has not given herself enough credit here, and I have to give her a strong endorsement, because what Mona Negm did as a member of our Committee on Hate Violence, as we were discussing these issues of coming to the Muslim community, or I should say of having the Muslim community be featured and be sought out, Mona's idea was, why not take our committee to the community? Let's not have a meeting within the four walls of where we hold our committee meetings every month. She said it is very important that we come to the community. And Mona has such a strong and powerful and supportive voice, and she's such an advocate of the values and in the goodwill of the Muslim community that, she is really the one that guided us into the community to hold that forum. So we hold her in very, very high regard.
And if I may just build on that, Lauren, is that it was the Committee on Hate and Violence that once we've identified the concern, reached out to the Chief of Police, for example, because there were some issues of trust and fear of the police, so that we brought the top of the top to the community to calm their fear, to provide them with alternatives and options, the issues of mental health for children and for families, and cultural sensitive mental health issues, specifically designed for Muslims. So they went to Oma Olwalia, who is the top person in the area of health with the Department of Health and Human Services, and she brought with her a whole range of options and services and resources for the community. The interfaith, they also identified the need for interfaith connection, and we had, of course, the Reverend Mansfield, who came in with ideas about how to connect with the interfaith community and what are some of the issues that are being developed, or the initiatives that are being developed that can be of benefit to our community. When it came to bullying and education and training and culture sensitive modules, they brought the top of the head of the Montgomery County Public School System, the educators to let our community know that they are developing modules, or they have already, and they told them about the policy against bullying and against discrimination, and how to fill out forms against that. And they also wanted to recruit members of our community so that they can become part of the culturally sensitive training modules that they are developing, and they want to get their ideas and our ideas and opinion on how to do it. So I think for the next step, and this is something that is really, really important, Sahar, and that is for the Muslim community to rise to the occasion. And that's basically what has been said during the last meeting, and that is we want to define ourselves. We want to be able to begin to coalesce together to form, to strengthen ourselves within our community, to begin to define ourselves, our priorities, identify our own resources and where the gaps are, and then of course extend the conversation to the interfaith community and develop collaborative, supportive plans to strengthen our voices and to continue the dialogue with our policy makers.
Right. Let's just highlight a very important point, Mrs. Negm, just in one or two sentences. The importance of having the committee itself come to the community rather than representatives or members of the community to go over
Yes.
in a closed room and talk about their concerns. I want you to shed light just very briefly on why this was particularly important for the committee itself to come to the community rather than the other way around.
It's one of the most essential outreach efforts, to show your face, to let people know that here we are with you, we will support, we will stand by you, we will provide you with the resources, the information, the skills. We will get the people who can provide you with that, and we will stand by you, and we will advocate on your behalf for your human rights, and this is something that has been continuously repeated. We had people, and I think it was the Office of Human Rights, the commissioners of who was it who always comes up? I think it was you, Sahar. And we have a couple of representatives of the Human Rights Commission who came up and insisted on repeating to our community the rights, that human rights, and that any violation of human rights should be reported directly, and we are with you and standing by you and by your side. So,
Director of the Human Rights Commission, Director Jim Stowe, made this very clear to the community, the Muslim community, to come up and to speak and to express their fears and their concerns and to report any incidents to the Committee on Hate Violence and to the Human Rights Commission. Ms. Lorraine, if we were to talk about the importance of a culturally sensitive approach, it seems to me from this conversation, this whole point about bringing the Committee on Hate Violence to the community rather than the other way around, and having liaisons from the Muslim community to express the fears and concerns of Muslims, it seems to me that the component of cultural sensitivity is particularly important in this process. And if I was to also express something important here, the point about stigma. There are some people who feel it's a stigma to talk about things that happen to them or incidents of hate and violence, and they just prefer to sweep it under the rug rather than confront it and talk about it. Can you please elaborate on this?
And you're absolutely right. And that's one of the problems, is the underreporting of hate crimes. And you asked earlier, what defines a hate crime? Well, it's simply any crime which is motivated by racial, sexual, or other form of prejudice, any acts against a group or individual based on their race, their color, their religion, their ancestry, their national origin, sexual orientation, gender, or disability. So if you have any crime that is motivated because of those things, it can be classified as a hate crime. But one of the problems in the community, not just in Montgomery County, but really just within our nation, is that these crimes are underreported. And sometimes because of the shame. But the thing is, you can't self-direct, you can't allow hate to fester if we don't stand against it. And these are our civil rights. These are our human rights. We're all a part of one family. We are extended voices that reach out all one to another, and that support is insane. If you're hurt, and this is what I felt very strongly in terms of my leadership of the committee, and what was troubling me with respect to what I saw by way of the Islamophobic rhetoric, was that it was so hurtful. I mean, it was paining my heart to hear the stories, to see the impact of such hateful acts against peaceful people. And you couldn't help but feel that not only was my blood boiling, but my heart was breaking. And so you must have community engagement. You must have cultural sensitivity. You must have things that are going to turn this around for all of us. Because if one hurts, we all hurt. This is the way we work as human beings. And if we can't feel the impact of that, if I can't say that I hurt because the Muslim community hurts, then I'm not being effective in this human body and on this planet. Because we must take it. And so taking a stand against these acts of hate and violence is what the committee strives to do. So when someone is a victim of, you had asked earlier, what should one do if they're a victim of a hate crime? Mm-hmm. The first thing one must do is pick up the phone and call 911. Report it. Please report it, because the more crimes that are reported, this all gets reported back to the FBI, but it has to be reported and has to be classified as a hate crime. Mm-hmm. And there's a very distinct doctrine which is attributed to a hate crime. It has to be reported as a hate crime. The police department has to report it as a hate crime, and that information is then funneled through to the FBI, who takes this data and creates, this statistical data then helps in the what they can offer to communities by way of support and resources. Mm-hmm. So we very much encourage.
Let's stop here at this point, Ms. Lorraine, and come back again to this important point right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
From their first words to first grade, Dreamy Children's Center will help get your child on the right track. The highly qualified staff works closely with parents to provide an experience that goes beyond early education. We can help nurture important personality traits with the use of educational programs ranging from preschooling for infants to Montessori-approved programs and bilingual curriculums for young children. All meals can be provided, and we can arrange for after-school pickup. Dreamy Children's Center in Dearborn Heights on Warren, in Westland on Ann Arbor Trail, and in Troy on DeQuinder.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Najee Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Najee Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design. New location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Najee Abood, 734-744-9796.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arab, WNZK 690 AM and wdmv 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we are discussing today Countering Islamophobia, Part 3 of this important series, Remarkable Voices and Successful Efforts. And with me this morning discussing this important topic, our two guests, Ms. Lorraine Lee, the chair of the Committee on Hate and Violence in Montgomery County, Maryland, and Mrs. Mona Negm, a member of the Committee on Hate and Violence in Montgomery County, Maryland. Before going to the commercial break, we were talking about the importance of not feeling that, being a victim of a hate crime is a stigma and something people should be ashamed of. And Ms. Lorraine, you talked about the importance of calling, 911 and reporting these incidents as quote-unquote hate crimes in order for the FBI to take note of this and to make sure that this is accounted for. Also, issues related to, for example, mental health issues are also seen as a stigma as well, which is why we had the director of the Department of Health and Human Services talk about fighting this kind of stigma. Can you please elaborate a little bit on this point?
Yes, but even though mental health in and of itself, or obviously that is, and you're right, having the director of the Health and Human Services at our meeting this week was really critical and important, because but it was, the reason that it was important is because the community let us know that this was an issue, that there needed to be support and there needed to be resources related to mental health and the mental wellness within the Muslim community, because of so many anxiety-ridden or acts that were raising anxiety amongst people, and also amongst students in school. The Committee on Hate Violence has very much taken up the issue of bullying in schools. That was one of our key initiatives and has been for the last 3 years. Our first bullying forum brought almost 1,000 attendees, and that was 3 years ago. But we recognize the importance of reaching kids in schools and hearing about what is happening within the realm of bullying, which is and remains a problem. I mean, if we were talking 5 years from now, unfortunately, I think we would still be talking about bullying being a constant, and that's really sad that is the forecast, but it simply is, and we have to have mental health agencies that will address that within the schools, along with, again, we talked a lot about community engagement and cultural sensitivity, and bringing all these things to the forefront, because that's what's going to bring about change. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the efforts of the Office of Human Rights, because we operate under the auspices of the Office of Human Rights, and Director Jim Stowe has been such an amazing supporter of our initiatives, and he is the driving force behind so many of our the concepts that we grow within the committee.
Yes, and as a commissioner in the Commission on Human Rights in Montgomery County myself, I always witnessed the fact that, the Commission on Human Rights has always tried to coordinate with the Committee on Hate and Violence to bring about such important initiatives. And we always focused on a very important theme, which is people should know their rights, and they should know how to ask for these rights and to fight for them, and they should never be ashamed to come forth and to try to speak up and to report these incidents when they take place. And Mrs. Negm, building on this point about stigma, you have been building programs that are culturally sensitive, not just in the area of hate and violence, but also aging for the Muslim community, and the whole idea about people knowing the rights and coming forth and speaking up and reporting incidents when they happen. What are some of the important initiatives that need to be taken in order to encourage people to fight for stigma?
Mental health, and you said it before, mental health in our community is such a stigma, and especially if you are an older person and you are brought up to believe that, you don't show your dirty linen to the public. You don't go to a stranger to talk to them, let alone go to somebody to report a hate crime, for example, or to report some mental anguish. They have to be very careful that whoever they're talking to is not, because it's such a small community, is not going to be spread all around. The gossip, people are afraid to be talked about. So it's very challenging. And during the Committee on Hate and Violence, the last meeting, some of the people who stood up and talked about they're afraid to come to the masjid, to the mosque to pray, because they're afraid to be attacked. Some people are saying, take off your hijab because so you don't be identified as a Muslim. So and they have fear and shame and anger, and so all these feelings that and somebody begged for mental health services. So I mean, to get to that point where you actually have to to speak it out, to say it out, it says that the situation is kind of dire. for seniors, something is happening, and it really is very positive. We have, I was on the advisory council for the county executive countywide summit on aging. So last summer we were able to put together 2 community forums specially designed for our Muslim community, and this is this is really unprecedented. It did not happen to other religious group, but they wanted the county went overboard to reach out to the Muslim senior community. They wanted to hear them out. And one of the priorities that came out was mental health, so it was caregiving, mental health, and of course income security. And that's what we are going to be doing. And by the way, Lorraine, you'll be happy to know that the Commission on Aging wants to model the Committee on Hate and Violence approach of bringing the whole entire Commission on Aging to the community. So I'm working on it right now as we speak. We're going to be doing it in early May, and they are bringing the county executive, all the policymakers, the government officials, the county officials to come to our community and respond to the senior needs. So we are, as I said, we are extremely fortunate to live in Montgomery County. And I am so impressed with the amount of commitment, because our community, as much as we we cannot live in a bubble, as it has been discussed, during our Committee on Hate and Crime meeting a couple of days ago. We have to reach out to the interfaith community. We have to reach out to ask for services, to speak out, but it takes courage, and it takes practice, and it takes support. And I really think, and you said it, Dr. Khamis, beautifully, you said we have to build bridges to the interfaith community. We have to build bridges to people that we are not familiar with. But it starts with the conversation. It starts with breaking bread with group. And I think fear comes from don't know the person in front of you. You might be apprehensive, but once you break that barrier, then it becomes easier to understand one another. So I really think we're making progress, and it's going to be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Very, very important point that we are always enemies of whatever we are ignorant about. We always fear what we are ignorant about, which is why ignorance is the biggest enemy that we have to fight through education. We talked a lot about community engagement and community education. Ms. Lorraine, the point about coordination as well, the second point, which is to coordinate efforts. The importance of having liaisons with the Muslim community, and recently the Imam of MCC, the Muslim Community Center, Imam Muhammad Abdullahi, has been selected as the Muslim chaplain with Montgomery County Police. What are the importance of these types of initiatives in the current climate of combating and fighting Islamophobia?
Lorraine?
Yes, Miss Lorraine, you hear me?
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I had muted my phone because I didn't want to give you background noise. I didn't realize it wasn't unmuted.
Did you hear my question?
In response to what you're saying, that was such a tremendous appointment. And it was such truly a triumph for the Muslim community. And what it also does, and what our two events have done, particularly the December the 10th event, because you had the media there. And what I loved about that media coverage is that it was so positive. Mm-hmm. And that's how we speak against the biasness even that we see sometimes within the media. But here what we did, not only with the appointment of the Imam as the first Muslim chaplain to the Montgomery County Police Department, that was done at the behest of the Montgomery County police authorities, actually, and they came to him and actually recruited him towards this effort. So I think it speaks very highly of the county's commitment to allowing our Muslim brothers and sisters to know how valued they are, and how we see how important it is to have representation in all areas of the county, with the Montgomery County Police Department,
Right.
and the area of Health and Human Services. So, and also again to rally against those images that we so oftentimes see in the media, the stories that we so oftentimes hear that are so negative. Here we have a great reflection of how
and we will come back again to
important
this
it is.
important point also about the role of the media right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
قشات ميديترينيان ماركت بإدارة سهر قشات وأولاده يرحبون بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. جميع أنواع المواد الغذائية، البان طازجة، الكراتات والبهارات الطازجة. داخل الأسواق مطعم ميديترينيان شيش كباب يقدم يوميا جميع أنواع الكباب، المقبلات العربية العراقية وصواني الكامبو المميزة. تفتح الأسواق من 8 إلى 9 مساء من الاثنين وحتى السبت، ومن 8 صباحا إلى 9 مساء يوم الأحد. تقع الأسواق على 32839 نورث وسترن هايواي في مدينة فارمينغتون هيلز. لحوم حلال للجالية الإسلامية. لطلباتكم من المطعم كول 248-538-7855. That is 248-538-7855. قشة ميديترينيان ماركت، خدمة متميزة ومعاملة راقية.
مسافر وحدك وفايتني.
أمتي ترافل للسياحة والسفر بإدارة نبيل الباشا تعلن عن افتتاح مكتبها الواقع على 28695 راين رود في مدينة وورن. خدمات متميزة وخبرة تفوق 20 عاما نضعها في خدمة عملائنا الكرام. مع أمتي ترافل يمكنكم حجز رحلاتكم الجوية داخل أمريكا، الوطن العربي وأنحاء العالم، إضافة إلى الأماكن السياحية والاستجمام. للحصول على أفضل العروض وأنسب الأسعار ولمزيد من المعلومات اتصلوا على الرقم 586-578-9126 586-578-9126. أمتي ترافل، عنوان للصداقة والثقة. أسواق زمزم الواقع على 24065 أورشارد ليك في مدينة فارمينغتون هيلز ترحب بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. تنزيلات كبيرة على عموم المواد الغذائية في يوم الأربعاء من كل أسبوع. لا تنسوا فريش كاري اوت، جميع انواع المعجنات، وايضا صواني الكامبو المشكله والصمون الحار. لحوم حلال الجاليه العربيه والاسلاميه، الملحمه باداره قصاب الجاليه المعروف سلوان جربوع. زوروهم على 24065 اورشارد ليك في مدينه فارمينغتون هيلز، او اتصلوا بهم على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمذاق عنوان لجميع طلباتكم، اتصلوا على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمعامله الراقية وكرم الضيافة عنوان.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and wdmv 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we're discussing today part 3 of Countering Islamophobia, Remarkable Efforts and Positive Voices. And with me this morning discussing this important topic are Ms. Lorraine Lee Stepney, the chair of the Committee on Hate and Violence in Montgomery County, Maryland, and Mrs. Muna Negm as a member of the Committee on Hate and Violence in Montgomery County, Maryland. Before going to the commercial break, Ms. Lorraine, we were talking about the appointment of Imam Muhammad Abdullahi, the Imam of the MCC Muslim Community Center in Silver Spring, Maryland, as a chaplain, Muslim chaplain with the police force. And then we moved on to talk about the media. Before coming back again to the important point about the media and representation and misrepresentation of Muslims, I would just like you to briefly talk about why it is important to have this Muslim chaplain and what the role and responsibilities are. Some people do not understand what it means to have a Muslim chaplain coordinating and working with the police in Montgomery County?
Well, I'll try my best to answer that question. I don't know to the full extent what his role will be, but one thing I know for certain is that the Montgomery County Police Department has representation for different religions within the Montgomery County Police Department, and it really is to not only to aid the community, but also to aid police officers within the department. So his role would be really very, it would be
very visible role. It's a very visible role in our community.
Very visible for the community as well as internally. So he's speaking to the internal constituents as well as external. Those within and outside of the Montgomery County Police Department. It is truly a significant appointment.
And may I interject, Dr. Khamis? If you recall, I think one of the issues of concern of our community is developing trust with the police department.
Yes.
And that from all the reports around the country, there are issues, especially with our immigrant community. There is a fear of deportation, or sometimes, sometimes reporting information that if they are under suspicion. So there is apprehension of the police.
And maybe this appointment will help to fight some of this apprehension,
appointment,
some of this fear, and some of this mistrust, can be fought through this kind of appointment.
And especially our imam, he is beloved by everybody. So it is so much easier to go to the imam and complain knowing that they are safe with him, and that he can report and deliver the message. So he is like our liaison with the police department. And then he got the training. I understand from the imam that he has been trained by the police department, and it's in the art of listening, or and everything that needs to be, all the steps that need to be taken for him to be legitimately, given a badge. I mean, he actually got a badge, and he was very proud of it. And it's a very exciting thing for the Muslim community to have a Muslim chaplain.
Right. It's again like building bridges, as we talked earlier about it. Building the bridge between the Muslim community and the different authorities that can provide this help and this support. In the remaining few minutes of our program, I'd like to shift to the third point. We talked about educate and we talked about coordinate, and now we want to talk about amplify. And Ms. Lorraine, you were talking earlier before going to the commercial break about the presence of the media, and I did notice in the two events we had in the MCC Muslim Community Center in Silver Spring, Maryland, we had good media presence and good media coverage. Can you please shed light on the importance of having this type of media coverage and media, presence at these important occasions?
Yeah, I think it's very important, because what it does is it's combating those negative images that we so often see in the negative reporting, and I must hand it to the media at both of those events. Not only did they come out, not only did many outlets come out, but the reporting was, right on the news that evening. They talked to, residents of the community, members of the Muslim community, and allowed their voices to be heard without interruption, without editing. And I think that's really so important. And what the committee is planning to do, we are planning to explore some initiatives where we can build on that positive outlook and create maybe some public service announcements featuring Muslim Americans. Again, that we can show ourselves as being a diverse county, and again, showing Muslim Americans in the most positive light. So we are looking to do some of those things, and we're working on those ideas.
Wonderful. And, speaking of public service announcements, the presence of the local television from Montgomery County, my Montgomery County media, my Montgomery County television. I had a conversation with the person there, and he said, yes, we can offer some, air time. If the Muslim community was to come up with some, public service announcements or programs or talk shows representing their own perspectives and issues, and we can air that on Montgomery County television, and that would be an excellent venue to define ourselves in our own voice and to speak for ourselves in our own voice, rather than having the media speak on our behalf or even misrepresent our images. And Mrs. Negm, briefly, since we have only a very few minutes left in the show, the idea of creating alternative media, the Muslim community itself coming up with an initiative to produce and offer alternative narratives and alternative media. Can you just in a couple of minutes tell us if you think this is possible, and if so, how can we go about it?
Well, I was thinking about it this morning, and I said, President Obama won the election through tweets, all the tweets and all the, the social media and all the blogs, and blogs can offer conversation, and we can, it doesn't have to cost us a ton of money, but if we can get that conversation, like we started a dialogue with our community, we started the conversation going, why not continue that conversation with every possible media that is open to us? Through the conversation, through the blog, through the Twitters, through, I am not very well versed in social media, but you're the expert, Dr. Khamis, and I'm thinking, why not have, we are so talented, some marketing experts, some of our marketing experts come together with an image that we can put together and sell it to the, through our own mean of communication, and put our own stamp. And again, if we don't identify our roles, if we don't speak for ourselves, and don't promote our own image, we can't expect others to do that for us. So I really think it starts with us, and if we can put our heads together, and somebody like Dr. Sahar Khamis can come up with some ingenious way of developing an image that we can own, rally around, and sell through different means of communication, whether in dialogues with the interfaith community, or speaking to the press, or sending press releases, or flyers, or and again, Twitters and blogs, and start the conversation in different communities, have a national movement, a campaign to promote our image, and have the interfaith community push for it. So, I mean, these are just some modest ideas, but they might be developed into something worthwhile,
I certainly hope so, because definitely the media has been playing a very important role, and unfortunately not always a positive one when it comes to representation, or I should say misrepresentation of Muslims, which might have very well contributed to this rising wave of Islamophobia, and therefore the need for having Muslim voices and Muslims speak for themselves in their own voice and define themselves by themselves through their own media and alternative venues, and definitely using social media as well, is indeed very important. I'm afraid we're coming to the end of our show today, and I would like very much to thank my two guests this morning, Ms. Lorraine Lee, the chair of the Committee on Hate and Violence in Montgomery County, Maryland, and Mrs. Muna Negm, a member of the Committee on Hate and Violence in Montgomery County, Maryland. Thank you so much for being with me this morning, and thank you for all your great efforts, both of you.
Thank you, Dr. Sahar Khamis. It's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. And thanks so much to all our listeners this morning. Thank you for being with us. Take care and goodbye.
The views expressed on the preceding program may not necessarily be those of the owner or management of WNZK. WNZK has available a few good hours of airtime for a few good programs to serve their communities. Radio is better than ever in targeting an audience that listens to what you say. Learn more about this exciting radio broadcasting opportunity by calling WNZK Radio at 248-557-3500. Call now. This is WNZK, Dearborn Heights, Detroit. Your ethnic superstation at 690 days, 680 nights.